All right, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go over just a couple of basic things that keep coming up in coaching calls I'm having with people, both free coaching calls and recurring ones. So I kind of want to cover this real quick, and then I want to talk briefly about Active Aging Week. How many of you on live know when Active Aging Week is, have it on your calendar, plan to market for it? It's a great example of how you can create an event and make something up, and then all of a sudden it becomes this national thing. So the International Council on Active Aging, I think I have their magazine sitting here somewhere. Yes, here it is. If you don't follow them, I'd strongly encourage you to. I think it's free to get their magazine. If it's not free, it's not very expensive. Gives me great content ideas, kind of gives me sort of updates on what's going on in the aging world. So here's their magazine, which I think comes out 6 or 8 times a year. The Journal on Active Aging. This one's actually a couple years old, but I've kept it around because I like some of the topics. Navigating estrangement through the caregiving journey. At some point, you're going to have clients that are dealing with that, right? Like they're becoming the caregiver for someone and they don't realize how challenging that can be, especially when your relationship goes from like spouse to not really spouse anymore, right? Like, especially if they have Alzheimer's or something where they're losing their cognitive ability. So this organization, International Council on Active Aging, about 15 years ago, just made up Active Aging Week. And now it's this national thing that lots of people participate in. Of course, they have a huge following. They even got Humana to sponsor it. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. There's no rule that says you can't make up an event, right? Or create a week or have, whatever it happens to be. So I created a conference one time called the New Aging Paradigm, and I got Home Care by Design to host it, run it, and it became an annual event that they had, and I spoke at the first 2 ones that they had. So I want to go over a couple of, I think, basic. Many of you have heard this from me before. I know some of you have been coaching that are on here. Beth's been coaching with me for a long time. Kristen, I met with you recently. Francine, I've talked with you in the past. Some of you, I don't know if Valerie, Joe, I'm not sure if we've met before, but it just keeps coming back to some of these low cost and even free ways to market. The first and foremost thing is you have to think about, what are we doing that is going to help our business make more money? What are we doing that's going to help us get that next client? Not sometimes we think too big. We think, oh, I need to be doing this fancy marketing strategy. Not necessarily. Sometimes you just need to be building that relationship with a physical therapist. I mean, I talked to someone yesterday on a coaching call, and she has a physical therapist that is sending her clients regularly. And so then we just really dove into that deeply, right? Is that entire physical therapy practice aware of all the things that you do, right? That you can help people with shoulder replacement. She's really specializes in joint replacement. And so I said, let's make sure the whole practice knows how easy it is to refer to you, right? We don't have to come up with any complex marketing strategy. It sounds like you're getting enough clients from there. So one of the things I always tell people is you want to fire the clients you don't want. And if you need to sort of retool your business, do that now, right? You don't want more of what isn't working. In fact, Dina, who I worked with, one of the first coaching clients, I said, we actually have to fire all 100 of your customers. I don't think she was thrilled with that as our starting coaching point. She's like, I thought you're supposed to help me get more customers, not fire them all. I said, but do you want 200 of them? She said, oh, no, that would be terrible. I said, well, if you don't want more of them, then we need to re-engineer your business. Now, her 100 customers were paying $35 a month for a ladies circuit gym, right? And it wasn't working. She was losing money, and more of them wasn't going to solve the problem. So we had to change completely what she was doing, right? And if you're right now dealing with a lot of customers that aren't paying enough, you got to change what you're doing, right? And one of the books I keep recommending here, it's actually 2. But one of the books I keep recommending is called Turning Pro. And I don't recommend it because it's a great book. It's honestly, it's not. It's a really simple book. It's about 130 pages, and almost every other page is a new chapter, right? My own moment of turning pro, um, a couple of different dreams from different people, what makes us turn pro, how your mind changes when you turn pro. Or like at some point, you can't tolerate customers abusing you anymore, right? Or telling you how to run your business, right? And so the concept of turning pro is so critical. And that was huge for Dina when she realized I don't have to keep my 100 customers. No, you don't have to. There's no rule that says you have to. You don't have to keep customers that are abusive. You don't have to keep customers that don't pay on time. So fire them and retool your business and really turn pro. Stop thinking about the if you build it, they will come mentality. That's just simply not true. And if you're on here and you want to open your own studio, that's great. I would love to coach you through that. But opening your own studio doesn't get you clients either, right? Like I know sometimes people they mistakenly say, "Oh, well, I'm just a trainer that goes into people's homes." First of all, don't ever start a sentence with "I'm just a," right? Like that's already minimizing you. No, you're a professional that helps change people's lives, right? You are solving people's problems by going into their homes. You are a professional business, whether you own a brick and mortar studio or not. And a lot of in-home trainers are way better and more skilled than people working in studios and health clubs, right? Beth, would you agree with that?
Yes.
I know Beth does in-home training. So don't start your sentences with, well, I'm just an in-home trainer or anything like that. So, and building a studio doesn't mean they're going to come to you or even know you exist, right? It really isn't. So you can have a really big, thriving business with no physical location whatsoever. In fact, our most successful personal trainers in the industry now have no location and they're training people virtually, right? If you want to have the most clients, that's the way you do it through technology. So a couple of key tactics to launch or grow with clients: stop relying on word of mouth, foster it, create it, build it, control it, right? You should not be trusting your clients for the future of your business. If you say, oh, well, I do such a good job, I don't have to market or my clients refer me. That's you just trusting your clients to send you your future business. Very few businesses operate that way. Physical therapy clinics do not operate on word of mouth. They just don't. That would be crazy for them to do that, right? They operate on physician referral, direct referral, hospital referral. Sure, they might get some word of mouth, but they're not relying on that. They're certainly marketing. They're doing all sorts of things, right? Chiropractors, word of mouth's nice, but that's not their primary source of new clientele. So stop relying on it. Create it, build it, foster it, ask for it, but don't just hope and pray that your clients are going to refer you. Let's be honest. Even your clients that absolutely love you are not spending that much time thinking about sending you business. They're not. They have 90 other things to worry about. They're like going to the grocery store and what they're cooking for dinner and where they're going out to dinner and what the grandkids are doing and so many different things, right? They're not like, oh, I got to spend all day figuring out how to get Kristen or Beth or whoever's listening here more clients. They're not doing that, right? So don't try to reinvent the wheel, beg, borrow, and model others. You guys should all be following each other. In fact, I'd love for you in the chat to put your Facebook website, any of that sort of stuff. You guys should be watching other trainers and what they're doing, right? I mentioned Dina, Active Age Fitness. Follow her on Facebook. Paul Holbrook, Age Performance. Follow him on Facebook. um, Functional Aging Institute, Growing Bolder. I mean, there are different companies. Put your website, put your Facebook page in the chat. You guys can check out each other's. People are doing great things out there in the industry. Don't feel like, because a lot of times it can feel lonely, like, oh, I'm the only one doing this. You're not the only one doing this. There are thousands of people doing this. In fact, it's estimated there are currently about 500,000 personal trainers across the USA. Now, they're not all training older adults. They're not all running their own studio, but a lot of them are doing great things. So build a list, build a list, build a list, build a following, build a raving fan base. You absolutely have to build a list. So if you ever get on a coaching call with me and I say, how big's your email list? And you say, I don't have one. You do have one. Maybe you just aren't tending to it or you're not aware of it, right? So you have a list. Your client list might be all you have. But I always say you have people who have inquired, you have people who you've worked with in the past, you've had people who you've been introduced to, you have a bigger list than you're even giving yourself credit for. So you really want to build a list. I'm not even so big on building the biggest list, but you want to build a list that's hundreds of people bigger than you could ever train, right? So if you want to train 50 clients, you should be making a goal to build a list of 500. And these are what I call process goals, right? So it's really easy to throw a goal on the board and say, I want to have 50 clients. And to get there, I want 5 new clients every month for the next 10 months, and I'll get to 50. Of course, you're forgetting you might lose some along the way. But how do you actually get those new clients, right? You have to do things like build a list, send emails, build a following, go to events, speak at places. You have to do all the process activities that lead to new clients. You don't just magically get 5 new clients because you wrote that goal on a board somewhere, right? So building a list is critical. I've seen across a lot of fitness studios, brick and mortar places, about a 10% rule. If you have a list of 1,500, you have active 150 clients. If you have a list of 3,000, you have active 300 clients. If you have a list of 1,000, you have active 100 clients. So if you're sitting here with 50 clients and you're like, I don't even know if I have an email list, maybe I do, maybe I don't, if you've never really done it, right? Start working on it. Because I know if you build that list from what it is today to double the size, your client base should double as well. You just have more people to reach out to, more people to contact, more people that can build a know, like, and trust factor with you, right? So we'll talk a little bit in a second here about Active Aging Week and why building a list is so important. So how do we build a list? How do we create more word of mouth? Well, the first thing you want to do is determine who you want on your list. Don't make the mistake of saying you want to train everyone. Don't make the mistake of saying, oh, I want everyone on my list. You don't want third graders on your list. You don't want people that can't pay for your service on your list. You don't want people that don't live in your service area on your list unless you're training virtually, right? I can see Beth on camera here. She's in the DC area, right? If she wants to do in-home training, doesn't make any sense for her to have people in Baltimore on her list. It's too far away, right? So who do you want on your list? Who do you really want to train? If you say, I only train women and I only train women who are 64 years old, then you know very specifically who you want on your list. Makes it a little bit easier to figure out who to go after and where to go get them, right? If you said, I only want to train tennis players who are women in their 50s and 60s, well, then we better seek out every tennis club in your market where women in their 50s and 60s are playing, right? We better learn who the tennis pros are and where I get the high-end tennis racket and who strings their tennis rackets and who's their coach and all of those specific tennis things, right? If you want golfers, same thing. So who do you really want to train? And I like for people to make that more of a bullseye, right? So don't just say, oh, I train anyone over 50. Really? Do you want to train people that are 94, that have cognitive issues, can't come to you, you have to go to them? I mean, really be specific. Well, I really want to train 70 to 74-year-old women that have this particular issue, right? Make a bullseye, get more specific, right? Because then if you have 100 of those women, right? Say it's women 70 to 75 who have had joint issues, maybe even joint replacements, you know exactly who to target, right? I want to target the orthopedic physical therapists. I want to target the chiropractors who have female clients with joint issues in their 70s. I want to target the orthopedic clinics with my information. You can be very specific. And then if you have 100 of those women on your email list is really powerful because it's very targeted as opposed to really, really broad. So here's just another example. This is broader, less bullseye, right? Ideal clients 55 to 70. Obviously, you want to have some level of affluent spending power, right? Doesn't do you any good to have a whole bunch of low income, fixed income seniors on your list. Keep in mind, a lot of fixed income people have a really high fixed income, so that term can be a little bit misleading at times. I had a client who was on a fixed income, but he had to take a $20,000 withdrawal every month from his retirement, right? Oh, what a challenge, right? How are you going to survive next month, right? So does he get a discount when it comes time to renew for personal training? No, of course not, because I know he's got more money than he can even figure out how to spend in most cases. I still think boomer women are the dominant consumer in terms of who I would be going after. I'm not telling everyone on here that that's necessarily their target, but when we think about boomer women, we're talking about women who are, 61 to 78. The last of the boomers turned 60 this year. Um, so this is a really powerful consumer. They've got spending power and they don't want to get old like their mother did. So a different mindset they have. That doesn't mean every boomer woman has any interest in fitness. Unfortunately, a lot of them still don't. But there's enough of them in most markets to more than keep you busy. So, couple just Facebook ad ideas just to give you some ideas. You really want to use real people. And I know not all of you want to run Facebook ads, but here's an example of a studio we worked with in Searcy, Arkansas, One Life Strength and Conditioning. Searcy area women, age 50 to 59. We're looking for be very specific. We're looking for 8 more women who want to live a long, healthy, and active life and fit the criteria below. The funny thing is, I mean, Facebook will let you target ages, right? The funny thing is women 50 to 59 will actually respond or comment on the ad. Are you really looking for women 55? It's like, well, we're only sending this ad to women 50 to 59. Yes, we're looking for you. And then you can run this same ad. I don't know if I have an example of it. And change the age range, right? If you're looking for women 60 to 64 or 65 plus. The only downside with Facebook, so here's kind of a sample of the picture. She's a real person, real client. Use real images if you can, as opposed to, like, we can tell she's not a stock photo model. It's not even a great photo, if I'm honest, right? Looking for 8 more women ready to live a long, active, and healthy life. And then we run this to different age parameters. And then all they have to do is fill out this form on Facebook. So I don't even have to build a fancy website to capture them or anything, right? First name, last name, email, phone number. The hilarious thing about this is that they will fill this form out, right? And I think they forget, because they're doing stuff on their phone. They might even be doing this, sitting in a waiting room somewhere, or who knows what they're doing, something waiting at a school with who knows? They're clearly distracted. They've seen this ad, they're like, oh, and they filled this out. And then when they put their phone number in, that's going to trigger for them to automatically get a text from us saying, hey, Joan, you just expressed interest in our, new women ready to live a long, active, healthy life. Would you like to come in tomorrow for a tour? And you'll get a funny text back like, who is this? How'd you get my phone number? Then you have to be ready to text. You just gave me your phone number. You filled out our Facebook form. Do you remember seeing the ad? It's like, it's funny. They don't realize that they literally just gave you their phone number to contact them. So be ready for that. So here's just some of that copy from that. And this changes all the time, but one of the tips on Facebook advertising has been to put in a lot of different icons and emojis. Seems to just help the ad perform a little bit better. So you see, we put in check marks and question marks and little caution signs and symbols and things seem to help it perform better. So here's the other version for the 60 plus. Searcy area women age 60 plus. So we're looking for 8 more women. Ad copy that's really specific, gets people's attention a little bit better. Also allows you to have a more specific conversation, like, hey, we only have 8 spots for next week, as opposed to just it's open-ended, do this anytime. Creates a little more urgency, so people are like, oh, there's only 8 spots. So serious inquiries only, 8 spots for those ready. I'm not really looking to get 100 people filling out my Facebook ad form, because that just creates a lot of work for me. So I really want people that are serious about taking these 8 spots. And here's the thing, if 12 people want to do it, I'll figure it out, right? Like, nobody's going to come back later and go, hey, in your Facebook ad, you said you were only taking 8. Like, we're going to hold you to that. Nobody's going to police that, but that 8 really does get people's attention. Now, Searcy is a town of 20,000. So we're not going to get 80 people signing up anyway, right? It's not that big a market. So you do have to be careful. If you're in a really big market, like Kristen, I know you're in Colorado Springs, you could put this out to, probably 50,000 people on a Facebook ad. I typically recommend you narrow the market, right? That's why women 60 plus, that even right there is going to narrow the number of people that see it. Men aren't going to see this Facebook ad unless their Facebook profile is set up wrong. But primarily only women over 60 are going to see this. So, all right. So that's all I wanted to teach on that. And then I want to show you guys real quick active aging week. So if you're not familiar with it, you've got this idea. Let me pull that up again. So again, active aging week, for those of you that got on late, the ICAA, International Council on Active Aging, created this event, I want to say about 15 years ago. And it is September 30th through October 6th this year. It's always like the last week of September, sometimes first week of October. It kind of moves around just a little bit, but here we go. The nice thing is they actually give you all kinds of marketing ideas. I mean, they're trying to create this as a marketing event, right? So if you go to activeagingweek.com, there's campaign tools here. So what I really like for many of you, I know that the question I get, and we'll talk about this, we're going to go live here with Q&A here in just a second. Great. Some of you guys are putting your websites in, your Facebook pages, love it. They're giving you a 7-day outline, right? Day one, emotional wellness, and they're giving you an article, they're giving you a 2-minute video, they're even giving you a podcast from Growing Bolder. So when people are like, well, I don't know what to email, well, you can use this 7-day formula right here, right? Pull a few quotes out of this article. You don't have to even send the whole article or anything like that. Intellectual wellness, you don't even have to use their stuff if you don't want to. You can just use the topic points, right? Pre-event day, getting ready for launch. So there's just a lot, there's a wealth of resources on their website on Active Aging Week. Theme days, which again, you don't have to follow the theme days if you don't want to. You can just take different tips. But I really like their campaign toolkit. From planning to promotional materials. We were on the promotional materials with all the 7 days. So I also like the fact that they're talking about all aspects of wellness, right? We tend to, as fitness folks, over talk about physical fitness, strength, but all these others are important too, right? Social, spiritual, environmental, intellectual, emotional, vocational wellness. So this gives you an excuse to email every single day that week, right? People are always like, oh, I don't want to email my list too much, right? It's Active Aging Week. It's a big deal, right? I'm going to be emailing you every day this week. You can even tell them on September 30th, hey, I'm going to email you every day this week because it's Active Aging Week, day one, and you can give them the outline for what to expect the next 7 days, right? So I will put this in the chat so you guys all have it. And then what we're going to do next is just go live. So whoever wants to go first with their question, their challenge, their big issue, we'll have you turn your mic on. So I put that in the chat, Active Aging Week. Again, you can go to icaa.com and I believe you can subscribe and get their magazine, but if you don't like getting magazines, just go to their website on a regular basis and get content ideas. Probably my 2 favorites are ICAA and then Growing Bolder. And this is the book that Mark Middleton put out. So if you're not following Growing Bolder, I mean, Growing Bolder puts out enough content to probably keep you content fed for marketing materials for Facebook, email, for, I mean, year round. They put out so much stuff. And the book itself is a great wealth of marketing resources. And then next level would be to hire someone like Jay Croft at Prime Fit Content. I'll put his website in. I don't know how many of you saw him on this week. We had him on Tuesday. At some point you get to the point where you're like, I just can't, be creating 2 email pieces a week and 5 Facebook posts, and Jay does it all for you, right? So for, I think it's like $79 a month, you got a professional writer creating all your content for email, Facebook, and all of that stuff, right? So all right, so if feel free to turn your camera on if you want. I can see Kristen, Francine, and Beth in the room. Since you guys are on video, any one of the three of you want to go first, have a burning question or challenge? I see Tiffany now too.
Sure, I have a question, couple questions.
Sure.
So when we talked, at that point I had my pricing on my website, and I've taken it off and had a lot of conversations, but a lot of time I'm finding that people want to just email me and say, what are your prices? And so I was wondering if you have tips for being able to build that relationship before, rather than, it seems like a lot of people feel safer with the email conversation, but of course it would be better to have that conversation ideally on the phone, or in person would be the best.
Yeah.
So how do you get there?
Yeah, great question. So first thing, let's start with, why do you think they're asking price?
I think in this case, the inquiries I was getting from this place, probably it's not my target market. But I'm still struggling a little bit to figure out how to connect with them, with the target market.
So there's kind of two ideas I want to share for everybody. I think, and I've read this a lot of places, I think most people ask, what do you cost first? Because they don't know what else to ask, right? So they don't know how to ask you, Kristen, how are you going to change my life? What are your fitness qualifications? Are you a functional aging specialist? Do you have a master's degree in exercise physiology? They don't know how to ask those questions, or why they would. The only thing they really know how to ask is, how much is this going to cost me, right? And so there's nothing wrong with the question, right? They just don't know what else to ask. So we always have to realize they're coming at us just trying to figure out, how do I get more information? That's really the only thing they know how to ask. I'm comfortable with giving people a price range. I like to actually say, and I'll even email back and say, well, our prices range from this to this, depending on what your needs are, what sort of program you want to be on. But really, I like to get on the phone with you or meet with you in person to go over how our programs work, right? Because I can't give you a clear price until I know what it is you need, right? What problem is it I'm trying to solve? And so you want to be more than just, because you can walk into any health club and get their price sheet in a lot of cases, right? Or in some cases you can't, because they're trying to sell you a used car back in the back room, and you don't even find out the prices till you get back to the back room with the sales manager, and then it gets real uncomfortable, right? And nobody wants that. But when I walk into the Mercedes dealer, if I have money to buy a Mercedes, my first question usually isn't, what's the price, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things I want to figure out. Do I want this car or that car? And then the features, right? I mean, I can look at a Mercedes ranging from 40,000 to 100,000, right? Depending on the features. So in your case, you want to try to educate them, and you also want to find out, you can even ask people, is price or cost the most important thing to you? Or do you want a fitness professional that really understands your needs and is going to be able to solve whatever problem you're having, right? And so you really want to sit down with them and explain your expertise, the way you work, and explain to them that, whether you prefer to do it in person, right? Like, my ability to know, like, and trust you and immediately build rapport with you is a lot harder on the phone than it is in person, right? Like, if I sit down with you in person, I realize, oh yeah, you're not just trying to sell me a fitness program. Like, you're a real person, you care about me, you've listened to me, you've heard my story. So that's a lot more valuable. And I'm real big on sharing with people. It's not just about price. It's about, what do you really want to get out of this, right? Because you're not looking for the cheapest personal trainer. If you are looking for the cheapest personal trainer, and I will tell people this too, and you should be comfortable saying this, if you're looking for the cheapest personal trainer, I can give you a couple recommendations, right? Because I'm not going to be the cheapest in town, right? So I think we want to try to move that conversation quickly to an in-person meeting if possible. We also want to try to figure out what their budget is, right? So you can give people, hey, on the low end, I'm going to be $199 a month. On the high end, I'm going to be $599 a month. It really depends on what program you want, right? And so if you want the best of one-on-one service, how often you want to train with me, it's really going to vary. So I always tell people the best thing to do is to sit down with me for 20 minutes. We can talk about all of your health issues, your current goals, what you want to do, and then we can determine the best plan for you based on your budget, your time, and what it is you want to accomplish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's helpful.
So you want to try to get control of the conversation, not just spit prices back to people. Um, because if all you do is tell them, $75 a session, well, that doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know how long a session is. I don't know what you're going to do with me. I don't know how qualified you are. I don't know how nice you are, right? Like I've never met you, so that stuff's pretty important. So
Mhm.
did you have another
Okay,
question?
I do. I don't want to take all the
Go
time
ahead.
here.
Go ahead. We've got time.
Okay, so there's been some opportunities for me to go into assisted living, independent living type of facilities. I was just wondering, do you know of do you have any advice or are there any legal ramifications of that I should be aware of?
Yeah, no, there's no legal ramifications. In most cases, your professional liability insurance is still going to cover you no matter where you're going. You might ask them what their liability insurance situation is, but this is why you always have to have professional liability insurance. If you're going into people's homes or you're going to a park or they're coming to you. The big thing that I advise people is that you get a working contract with them. Even if it's just month to month, that there's an agreement. Hey, I'm allowed to come in and I'm allowed to train residents. If you're doing a group fitness program for them, I mean, we worked with 2 different assisted living facilities for, oh gosh, almost 10 years.
Mhm.
And every year we would re-up the contract, right? We're going to come in and do this fitness class for 45 minutes twice a week, and it's going to be $65 a session. I mean, it was very spelled out what we were doing. If you're going in just doing private one-on-one sessions, then really you just have to have an agreement that you're allowed to do that because you're allowed to charge whatever you want, right? I mean, you can go in and train residents in their facility for your usual rates. You just don't want them, all of a sudden coming back to you saying, well, we're going to only pay you this. It's like, well, then I'm not going to be doing it anymore, So
Yeah.
most of those, not all, but most of those facilities have lots and lots of resources. I mean, gigantic budgets for all these sorts of things. So do not feel like you have to offer them a discount. You absolutely don't. I mean, I had a I had a friend who was a grad student at Purdue, and he's like, they want to pay me $75 to do a 30-minute chair yoga session. I'm like, do it. I mean, they have a lot of resources to pay you to go in and do that. And he started doing that regularly. Um, and then like I said, we did like an 8 or 10 year contract with one of it was every year we renewed it. And we did that for a long time. So, and we didn't reduce our rates at all. In fact, sometimes we were charging more because they were only 4 minutes from us, so it wasn't a real problem. But we had to go to them. A trainer had to leave our facility to go to them. So, yeah, Francine saying I put the facility as a rider on my policy. It's free and typically easy. So you can reach out to your professional liability insurance and just say,
Okay.
hey, this is a place I'm going regularly. Um, Did you have any other questions, Kristen?
Nope, not right now.
All
Someone
right.
else.
You're not off the hook. We might come back to you, but I'm sure someone else will have a question that you probably want the answer to. So, who wants to go next? Don't all jump at once. Kristen broke the ice, so
I'll have a question. My pain point right now is with my trainers. So for the folks on the call, I have a in-home personal training business. My business is in the Northern Virginia, Washington, DC area, where the cost of living is very high. But people's net worth and their daily, is quite high as well. I've recently moved to Norfolk, Virginia to support my family. So I have a number of clients, trainers. I have 5 trainers now that work with me up in the Northern Virginia area. I pay them a very high rate because I wanted a very high level of skill and expertise and accountability. I'm probably the stupid one on this end of the span here. The biggest struggle I have right now, is I have I've tried to make things very simple. And I ask for few things. You know, for the most part, I really try to give trainers the ability to train and design their programs, what they need to do, and schedule as they need fit. And in exchange, I ask them to fill out, one, to provide for me their workouts in a workbook, and two, to update the notes. These are two things. The notes have become vitally important. Recently, I had a client that had a stroke last week. Prior to that, I had a gentleman that had developed some heart issues, which resulted in him ending up with a pacemaker. And I had another client who passed away in November, but I was the one on the scene that had to basically tell the paramedics kind of everything that was happening with her and her health and her medications and so forth. So for me, the notes are vitally important to track what's happening in someone's health, because we're in their home. Some have cognitive issues, some don't. So I apologize for the long lead up, but that kind of supports my question. I am really struggling with getting my trainers to update their notes. I think it's a really easy ask. My trainers are contractors; they're not full-time employees. So the one pull I have is, if you don't update, I won't pay you. But I don't want to get nasty. I don't want to get ugly. It's an easy ask. So I guess my question to you is, you know, if with all intent purposes, you're paying somebody a really livable wage, they're educated, they're qualified, they have, you know, to be really independent, mature employees, but any thoughts on how to encourage these notes that I so
Yeah.
vitally need?
So two things first. Why don't you tell everybody what you charge for a session to go into people's homes, and then what you're paying the trainer?
Okay. So, Kristen, a little bit to what you were saying with regard to price and what you charge people. I actually don't charge per session. I charge on a monthly rate. My monthly rates range from $600 to $875 a month, and it really depends. For my clients that pay 600, those are my older clients that are either in their 90s or have really significant health issues, and I know we're going to get cancellations on a regular basis, and I charge them regardless. For my folks that are a little bit more able-bodied, they pay $875 a month, and the number of sessions per month varies. I don't mess around with pay, and I don't negotiate really, because I'm worth it and my clients are worth it. It took me a long time and coaching from Dan to say that. So just
Glad to hear you
FYI.
say that. There was no just or any of that.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
So when we get into the nitty gritty of like when people ask me what I charge, I don't negotiate with them, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about it. It is what it is, and I'm happy to talk further with you offline, because I've had those same issues. But so with $875 a month, my take home, the rate really is around $93.75 if I look
93 a
at a per
session. Okay.
session, right around there. It's going up, I think. So I pay my trainers about $75 a session, between
Okay.
$75 and $100 a session, depending on the trainer and the client.
Okay.
That
Well,
is.
do they get paid to do the notes, or that's just an expectation? It's just part of.
No, that is part of the job description, that is part of the requirement.
Okay.
Um,
So I have two options for you, Beth. One would be, I mean, first of all, you can begin withholding their pay because they're not completing their job, right? It's sort of like, I don't pay you. If you don't show up and train Bob, you're not getting paid, right? Like, if Bob isn't getting trained, you're not getting paid, right? So if you don't show up to train Bob on Tuesday, I can't pay you for that session, right?
Yeah.
In your case, Beth, I'm guessing if Bob pays for a month and has to cancel out with a trainer a time or two, the trainer might not get paid in full for that session because they're not training. But if I don't show up to train the client, I should not expect to get paid. So if I show up to train the client, but I don't turn the notes in, I haven't fully done the job.
Right.
So one thing you can do is just withhold their pay, right? Like, well, you didn't turn in your notes with your time card. So because you didn't turn in your notes, and turning in your notes means you have to do them satisfactorily, right? It's not like my dog ate half the notes, right? And so I couldn't turn them in. No, the notes have to be completed to your satisfaction. Or you could change up the pay, right? Now, the problem is if you change up the pay, you might not get the notes, right? But you could just tell people, hey, I'm only paying you half until I get the notes, and the notes done well, right? So if you show up and train, you get $37.50 for training. If you complete the notes, you get the other $37.50, right? And you also are just going to have to get more, I don't want to say ruthless, but I mean, you're just going to have to enforce it, Beth. Like you just have to, if you don't enforce rules, you don't have rules, right?
Right.
I mean, it's sort of like if I tell my kids bedtime is 10, but then nobody actually tells them they have to go to bed at 10, right? And they're like, well, I can stay up till midnight because nobody's doing anything, then 10 isn't really a rule. It's just sort
Right.
of like, so in your case, you're probably just going to have to get stricter on it. And people are going to have to realize like, wait, why didn't I get paid this week? Well, you never turned in your notes. So, or well, how come my paycheck was half what I thought it was going to be? Because you didn't do half the job, and half the job is the notes. And so
Yeah.
you may have to, again, this is part of turning pro. And when we start to manage people, they will, if you give them an inch, they'll take that inch and they'll take two more, right? And so
They
you
will.
have to really hold the line and be like, this isn't negotiable, right? This isn't do the notes if you feel like it, or I'll get around to the notes, because let's be honest, if I didn't do the notes in August, there's no way I'm reproducing them now,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I have to do them day by day by day. And you probably need to have a more aggressive way in which they record them and turn them into you regularly. I don't know if you want them every day or if you want them every 2 days, but I would make that more consistent. Because
Well, to that end, I did just start with I started with Gym Insight with the software. And
yeah,
so the nice thing is now when they pull a session, they can put the notes in. So,
good.
the
And
edict
you can
now
go in
is,
really quickly into Gym Insight
yeah,
and see the tasks that aren't being done, right?
yeah,
And then what I would do is just start creating a team email, right? And the email goes out every other day or something, right? On Tuesday, it just goes out, and the email can just be, hey, I noticed there's 4 clients that the notes haven't been recorded. Kristen, Francine, Beth, Tiffany, I noticed there were 2 clients you haven't had your notes recorded. So everybody in here knows everybody is being held accountable, because Beth can go into Gym Insight and see whose notes have been logged
yeah,
on which client and haven't been. So start making that a routine, because at some point, Tiffany's going to go, dang it, I got called out again on the team email, right? And be like, I got to get my notes in.
yeah,
And people will start to fall in line. And the ones who don't, then you have a specific conversation with them, like, this is unacceptable. The notes are critically important. You have to stress exactly what you shared with us, right? I've had clients die. I've had clients have strokes. I've had whatever it happens to be. I have to have the notes. It's as important as the training
yeah,
to you. So you have to stress that again, and then make it very clear that if you're not going to get these done regularly, you're not going to be able to work here anymore, right?
yeah,
You're going to have to be willing. The hardest part about the position you're in now, Beth, is you have to be willing to fire people that aren't excellent, right? And you're going to get trainers that are good, but not great. Might be really good trainers, but they don't want to do the notes. Well, then you don't get to stay.
no, I have one of those. I can
I
only
know,
think
and you
one.
probably know which one of the 4 or 5
I
trainers right
know,
now.
we
There's
know.
probably one right now you need to fire. Uh,
Yep.
and if you haven't had the conversation with them, like, hey, this has to improve, this has to improve, and if it doesn't in the next 3 weeks, we're gonna have another conversation about you not being here anymore, right? Like, you got to be real direct with people.
You do. Yeah,
Because
it's
they
hard.
think they're doing okay, right? Like, well, I'm not, the clients love me, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but you're not getting the job done 100% satisfactory. And I'll tell you, firing people sucks. I hate it. Um, it's the worst. It's the worst. Even the people that deserve to be fired, it's still not fun doing it.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Well,
like,
I did the one about a year or so ago, and it just was like brutal,
yeah, it's
just
awful. It's awful.
brutal.
It's awful. I remember firing one gal. I mean, I still remember it. It breaks my heart. She was a great person and super nice and friendly. And she just wasn't good enough, and she wasn't taking the feedback we kept giving her, and we kept telling her this has to change and this has to change, and she wouldn't change it, and you've got to improve on this. She wouldn't do it. And when I finally let her go, she's crying in my office, and I'm just so, I feel terrible, right? Like I'm the horrible person here. And it's like we gave her more time than we should have, but If you don't do that, Beth, then you sort of allow the staff to run the business the way you don't like, right?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
get frustrated. And
Yeah.
then if you don't solve it by firing the person, then you start to resent yourself as a business owner because you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
why? I don't like the way this is going. And,
Yeah.
why don't they just do it correctly? It's like, well, because you haven't fired them, right?
Yep.
And as soon as you fire someone for not doing the notes, everybody else realizes Beth means business about doing
Yeah.
the notes,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think those
Yeah.
are really important. I will never
Yep.
miss my notes again.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Who wants, Francine, you want to go next? You turn your mic on.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, hear you great.
Excellent. Okay. I just wanted to share with you all. I used to work in healthcare. I spent 10 years in community health, and then I ran a cardiac rehab department for 8 years. So in the healthcare industry, we have to document everything. And there are good reasons for that. Liability is the biggest one. So Beth, they're liable it's very easy to prove a trainer negligent. It's very easy to prove a trainer negligent if they do not have good documentation. I have a suggestion for you. Do you have a form or an outline that your trainers could use perhaps, following maybe the medical model of SOAP notes? Specific, objective, I think it's assessment, and then prognosis, something along that line, if I remember the acronym correctly. You could just put date, time, who they're working with, and then if there are any incidences, those should all be documented as an incident. If I'm training someone and it happened once, a lady tripped and ran into a wall at the gym. I had a notebook right there because I was trained from the hospital to document everything. So right there, 7:37, Jane tripped over her step bench and crashed into the wall. Denies pain, denies injury, no swelling, redness, or etc. at the site. So it's just very simple, very clear, just the facts kind of thing. So that would be my suggestion to you, would be to reinforce the liability issue, because you're also liable, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really helpful. Thank you. Appreciate
You're welcome. You're welcome. Glad to be able to pitch in. Thanks for letting me shout that out, guys.
Sure. Any questions from you, Francine, to deal with?
Yeah, maybe. I haven't really formulated the question yet. I haven't wrapped my head around it, but thanks to you, Dan, and Dr. Sipes, I've been working for 3 years on a holistic wellness program that I could introduce virtually. I've come out with an outline. It is very holistic, very well-rounded program, I feel. It addresses the cognitive component as well as the balance of falls and injury component, the cardiovascular, muscular strength and endurance, and of course, mobility. It's called Fit for Life. FIT program is my registered trade name, stands for Fran's Ideal Training Program. And Fit for Life stands for Fran's Ideal Training Program, living independently forever. And I based the program on a needs assessment that I did. I just put out a Facebook post, asked people if they would fill out my survey. I had 50 people respond, 32 completed the survey. I gathered all the data, created a spreadsheet, etc. And then I responded back to them, all of them, with a letter, not only giving them the overall survey results, which were very, very interesting. Folks, I really encourage you, if you're thinking about programmatic design, to do this. Not only was it interesting, but I used that information to tweak my program and to make my program more of a program for them. And then I put it out to them that way. This is your program. You helped me shape it. Anyway, I'm kicking it off on the 30th in conjunction with the International Council on Active Aging's Active Aging Week.
Good.
Orientation is the 30th. We're going to be every Tuesday at 1 o'clock for 8 weeks. The price point is ridiculously low. I'm going to have a ton of work in it. We're going to be doing baseline assessments midway and final, how well have you done here?
All
And I'm
right,
gonna use all
it's
that
all
information.
relative. What's ridiculously low for you, Francine?
Don't laugh, please. All right, $389 for the 8 weeks. We're gonna be meeting weekly. I know you're gonna laugh.
I'm not laughing because that's much higher than I thought. When you said ridiculously
Oh,
low, I was thinking $39 or something like that.
oh.
389 is not ridiculously low. And if you got 100 people signed up at 389, you're gonna make $38,000. So that's not ridiculously low.
Yeah, I'm not actually, Dan, I'm gonna keep it small. I want it small and intimate. I want to give these people what they need.
Okay, so
I
how many people are you shooting for?
12 to 14.
Okay, well that's still
It,
$4,000 or $5,000 for 8 weeks.
yeah,
That's fine.
yeah, yeah, because we're gonna be doing body composition. If there are diabetics in the group, we're gonna be hopefully trying to
Is it
stabilize their blood
virtual,
sugar.
in person, hybrid?
Virtual, in person, over Zoom with recorded sessions.
Okay.
Facebook private Facebook group with the recorded sessions, as well as group chat support and accountability. I'm going to provide the spreadsheet results anonymously. So if we were all on that spreadsheet, you wouldn't see your name, but you'd know who you were. You just wouldn't know who anybody else was. So folks have a meter to compare themselves to. I just
And
thought that might be good.
the 32 survey responses, you already gave them the $389 program for free?
No. It's 389 for them. If you're not a survey respondent, it's 429.
Oh, great. Okay, great. How many of those 32 survey respondents have signed up at the 389?
2.
Okay, all right, you're off and rolling. Good.
I've just started calls this week, Dan. So I was on vacation last week.
Okay, great, great. So what can I do to help you get that to 12 or 14 people sold out?
Any ideas? I I don't want to be pushy. Some of those people really could benefit greatly from this program, not from just the aspect of longevity, but longevity with purpose, with health, not just lifespan, health span, to quote a very often quoted quote.
Hi, Janine. I see Janine on here too. So I mean, I'm pretty simple, Francine. How big's your email list?
300.
300. Okay. How many emails have you sent to that email list so far about this launching program?
None. I just pitched it to the 50 that filled out this survey so far. I have not put it out to the broad
Okay.
public.
So
Yeah.
I'm saying this to you, Francine, but I'm saying it to everyone listening. So those 300 people, they really have no idea that you're offering or launching this, right? I mean, you haven't emailed them, so how would they know? Other than you
Right.
did the survey before. So
Right.
um
Right.
Kim, thanks for
Yeah.
being on. I'll send you the recording so you can watch the rest of it. Sorry we didn't get to your question. If you have one, Kim, you can type it in and I'll answer it even after you leave. But Francine, so if you're launching this in 10 days, September 30th, you've probably got to get 3, maybe 5 emails out promoting it between now and then, you know. And I heard you say I don't want to be pushy. Well, I'm going to push back on that and say, do you not want to help 15 people?
Oh, I do.
Okay, so then you have to offer it to those 300. You have to let them know you're offering this. You have to share information from those 32 surveys, right? This is what I found out. This is how I built the program. This is why I'm offering it. It launches September 30th. I've only got 12 spots, right? That should be an email that goes out today or tomorrow because, I mean, you've only got 10 days left to even know about it. You're going to have people upset at you. I mean, if I was on your email list and I didn't find out about this till the 29th, I would be like, why didn't you tell me about this? I would have loved to have done this, right? You're not giving me an opportunity to sign up. Send them another email on Monday that fully outlines the program. And now you've only got 9 spots left, right? Because you've sold a couple this weekend because you sent an email out today or tomorrow. On Monday, you send an email out and explain to them why it's $389 or $429 because you're only taking on 14 people because you want to have an intimate group, you want to be able to help people one-on-one, virtual, you know, all the value proposition that's there, right? This is not just another online training program that 1,000 people could sign up for a ridiculously low $49, right? You know, $3.89 is not ridiculously low. It might be ridiculously low though, and sell them on why it's a ridiculous value if you feel like you're giving them $1,200 worth of one-on-one attention, right? I mean, so we always want a value proposition. I have packed $1,000 worth of value into this, but I'm only selling it to you for $389, right? But that has to be real. It can't be just made up marketing gimmick either, right? You know, so you have to justify you're getting a fitness assessment, you're getting these evaluations, these fitness tools, these coaching sessions, you know, all of that stuff, right? So, so I mean, you got to email your list a minimum of 3 times. And honestly, you can have a 4th and 5th, what I call last chance email, right? You always want to tease out, like next Friday and next Saturday, you can send out that last chance. Hey, last chance to sign up. I got 3 spots left. We're starting on Monday. I've got to get you signed up, ready to go today. Keep in mind, if you have 300 people on your email list, if you're really good, only half of them are going to read the email that goes out today, right? I mean, they're just not all going to see it. So then when you email again on Monday, some people will be seeing it for the first time. Some people will be seeing it for the second time going, oh yeah, that's right. Francine emailed me about that. I really need to get serious about looking at my calendar. Can I commit to this? Right? That's about as far as they get, right? And then you email them on Wednesday and they go, okay, I got to do this. She's only got 6 spots left, right? None of those emails have to be pushy, Francine, but all of those emails have to educate your email list as to why they need this, why it's a solution for them, why it's going to help whatever they're dealing with, right? You have to offer them the expertise that you're bringing, right? You don't have to be pushy about it. You don't have to be overly salesy. Just present what it is, right? Educate them as to the opportunity, right? Think of email marketing more like, I like to use this term, search and rescue. Right? You have 300 people on your email list. I'm going to just take a wild assumption that 250 of them desperately need your help, right? They're not at the absolute top of their game in terms of fitness, wellness, holistic. Let's be honest, you know they're not, right? Yeah. So if you're not consistently reminding them how you can change their life, improve their life, help their life, then I'm going to say to you, Francine, you really don't care about them, right? You don't care about helping them, right?
No, I do.
You know, you're so worried about, I don't want to be too pitchy or too pushy that I'm not even going to tell them about how I could change their, like, no, you got to tell them and you got to reach out to them passionately about how you can help them, right? Does that make sense?
It does. I appreciate the tough love, Dan.
Good.
And also to address Kristen, I'm scheduling calls with the folks after I email them. And Dan, I am scheduling calls so that I can develop relationships or redevelop, if you will, or renew relationships with some of these people that I used to see at the gym or at the rec center, which are both closed now. So I am totally virtual.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what I would do. I mean, obviously you can post it on Facebook. The next step would be the 32 people who actually filled out the survey that are interested. You could get them potentially to give you some testimonials about just even what they've learned through the process. Share those on Facebook, you know, like June shared this and Joyce shared that. And you could get them potentially to promote it on Facebook for you. But I never can rely on that or count on that, right? I mean, I might have 5 people who are like, oh, I'm definitely doing your program. And we all know what happens. Those 5 people who say, I'm definitely doing your program, 1 shows up and the other 4 are like lost in the wilderness somewhere, right? Like they told me for sure they were coming, right? And they didn't show up. So you can't necessarily rely on them. So, all right. I'm going to do, it looks like Anshul, I might be getting your name wrong, but Anshul's typing in the chat saying he's in the library where he can't speak. So says he has a question. I'm looking to do more finely grained advertising, like based on physical activities, etc. I did not see that option in the Facebook Ads Manager. How would you recommend I go about finer, granular, targeted advertising? Well, as you dive into Facebook ads, you can get more fine-tuned by setting your audience and your market. I tend to like Facebook advertising splitting the genders. So you target women, you target men, and the ad copy can be similar, but it tends to be a little bit different. Obviously, you got ad copy that say we're specifically looking for women 50 to 59. We're specifically looking for men 60 to 64. And then once you split genders, you can get specific. Facebook will let you target groups that are, Facebook has audiences based on tennis, golf, magazine subscriptions. You can plug in things like AARP. Now, if you're targeting if you're targeting a virtual market across the whole US, that is gigantic, but you can get pretty targeted on Facebook ads. And if you want a specific call on that on Shul, we can hop on Zoom and I can dive into Facebook advertising with you, because Facebook will let you, I mean, it's almost scary, right? But they will let you target people that subscribe and read tennis magazines, are over the age of 60, have this sort of household income, vote or don't vote. I mean, there's just lots of specific lifestyle parameters because Facebook has so much data. So if you're really wanting to target golfers, the challenging thing with that is you have to keep in mind, I might subscribe to a golf magazine. It would be weird for me to subscribe to a golf magazine and not be a golfer. But I might have certain things, like I'm not a golfer, for example, but I play pickleball a lot. But Facebook has no idea that I play pickleball a lot because I have no parameters in Facebook that Facebook knows that I play pickleball, right? I don't subscribe to any pickleball magazines. I don't follow any pickleball pages on Facebook. There's no way you're going to find me. So keep in mind, sometimes you wind up getting people on Facebook based on targeted parameters that don't match who the people are. So that can be, a hit or miss. But if you're doing a broad, if you're trying to target, let's say, a whole state, Florida, you can get way more people than you would ever need. And I've targeted people for specific health things on Facebook, and you can get real specific if you want. But keep in mind, Facebook doesn't know, right? I'll just pick on Tiffany. If Tiffany doesn't put in anything on Facebook that she has interest in, gardening, then if I'm trying to target people that want to be more functionally fit gardeners, Facebook's not going to catch her, right? Because Facebook doesn't know that's her interest. So sometimes you really just need the age parameters, the income parameters, the spending habits, right? If my female clients are average 60 to 69, and my best ones shop at Talbot's and Chico's, then put those parameters into Facebook and you'll have close enough, right? Because you're going to have way bigger audience than you ever could handle. So, all right, who wants to go next? I will go, just so everybody knows, I know some people have to hop off. I will go till 1:30 today. We're at 1:06. Yeah, Anshul, awesome. Send me an email. That's great. Tiffany, do you have any questions? I see you on. Joe, Janine, who else we got here? Katie, Valerie. And you don't have to turn a camera on. You can turn a microphone on, or you can type it in the chat.
Yeah, no, Dan, I'm just hanging out and listening today. I'm just absorbing information.
That's great. That's
Thank
great.
you, though.
Love it. Love it. I know we have a call scheduled for Tuesday, so.
Yes, Tuesday for sure.
Anybody else have any questions, challenges, struggles, sticking point in your business you want me to try to address?
Hey, Dan.
Hey, Janine.
How are you? So I'm just coming to a realization here that, well, I know I've been just kind of transitioning now into that pro mode rather than just running classes. And when the other lady, sorry, forget your name, was talking about the documentation, it's something that I really haven't been doing. So, and I see another lady had asked if there was a certain software or something that would be beneficial to be using for documentation, or what do you
Kristen asked, what's the best method or software to document? Beth, do you have a software you've been using?
So up to this point, I've so when it was just me, I had Google workbooks for each client, and I had a note section. And then as I sort of now have folks working with me, I have an incident report form, which everybody has a copy of. So when something happens, they fill it out and send me. But now I have just switched from doing sort of my own kind of sending out invoices to a new software system called Gym Insight. which will allow me to document and capture everything in this system. So it has a notes function. And I think that that actually is gonna be a good option for me. Because it's a low cost to entry, it's not very complicated to use. And it's a good way to manage my clients. So I think that's going to be a good option for me. But providing the format that Francine had mentioned, kind of sending out that kind of backbone structure in a like a Word document or in an email to just say, when you do your notes, please include these points in the notes section, would be something that they could do pretty easily on the road. Is that helpful? Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Yeah, Jim Insight is a customer management software, so it will do your billing, customer tracking, birth date of your customer, credit cards expiring next month, all of that stuff, which when you get to the level Beth's at, you need something like that because she's managing her business even from hours away, right? And she can quickly look at a glance who paid today, who's scheduled to pay next week, whose credit card's expiring. And Jim Insight will even generate notes, right? Like, so-and-so needs to be called because their credit card's expiring, or so-and-so Francine needs to be called again because her credit card didn't go through, right? Like you start to see those tasks. And then of course you can do the notes for sessions. Jim Insight will even handle things like new inquiries, Kristen wants to come in for a tour on Thursday at 10 a.m., so I don't know, Janine, if you need Jim Insight. It's certainly something you could look into. But having, even Google Notes for you, having something. So if somebody has an incident, an accident, an injury, right? Because as you get more and more clients, you're going to be like, wait, which Sue was it that told me her knee was hurting on Tuesday? At some point, that's going to be hard to keep track of, right? When the clients start to outnumber you 50-1, you have to start documenting some of that stuff, right? Like Bob told me he's not coming next week, right? Put that down somewhere, right? Because you don't want to be emailing him on Wednesday going, Bob, where were you? Bob will be like, I told you I was going to be out of town for 2 weeks. Oh yeah, I forgot, so you have a way to document that.
I would
Okay.
say for me that's been like the only way I remember what's happening with people is when I document it in my Google workbook. And if it's not in there, inevitably it doesn't exist. I'm happy to share the form that I created. I'm happy to share that with you if you'd like. And the nice thing about it is with my other trainers, or if anybody's coming for me, I can share the document and they can see all my history and notes and everything. So it was helpful.
Beth, could you share that in the FAI the Mastermind Facebook group with
Yeah.
me? Yeah.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you guys are both in there. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
any other questions, Janine?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Janine, the only Canadian in the room? I think she might be. I think that officially means you're the politest, nicest person in the room, right? So
I was just gonna say, please don't hate me. Not sure, yeah, not sure about this country these days, but anyway.
All right, anybody else? Valerie, Joe, I think everybody else has either talked or shared their question, which is great. Valerie or Joe may be listening while they're driving in a car for all I know. So
Yeah.
anybody
Dan,
else still on that's on camera have any last questions or any other things you want me to address?
Yeah, Dan, can you hear me? This is Joe.
Yep, I can hear you, Joe.
Okay, great. Okay, so I've got COVID in my brain's a little foggy, but let me see if I can explain my dilemma. I have been working mostly with startups in the health and fitness field for a long time. And I'm just starting to go out on my own, basically. And I just got board certified as a health coach and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm focusing on people that want to prevent dementia or are in the early stages of dementia. And based on some contacts I have and friends I have, I thought people would just be falling all over. Sorry. to sign up for my coaching or my program or whatever. And the other thing that I do are like fun tropical things, wellness activities, which,
Okay.
I don't charge much of anything for, or, I was doing workshops. But anyway, now I've got some hip injuries. I have to do everything virtual. And thank you for letting me have the opportunity to ask this question. So how can I get people interested in my program if I can't really go out much? And, the people that I thought, I do have access to a couple email lists that I haven't really taken advantage of that are mostly older people. But yeah, I'm just struggling with, of all the things I could be doing, what is going to be the biggest bang for my buck?
Well, let's start with the basics. Can you really define who your ideal best client is? Let's start with, are they male or female?
I think, and this goes back to something you said earlier, I think women over 60, it
I do
seems like
too.
men, I hate to generalize, but it seems like a lot of the men I talk to are, more, they are less open to changing anything.
Oh yeah. I don't need anybody to help me. I can figure it out. Right? I don't need
Yeah,
I certainly don't need a woman coaching me, right? So,
exactly.
I hate to tell you, that doesn't stop, and it might even be worse with men in their 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah,
You need
that's what I've been discovering.
So you're right.
Like
So okay, so we're
a
only
guy,
on women,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
only focusing on women. Give me an exact age.
I think 60 to
62?
75.
No, I want an exact age.
Oh, exact age.
67, 68?
68's a good age.
Okay,
Yeah.
68. You picked right in between your range you wanted to give, right?
Oh, I
So,
did. Yeah.
I really want you to bullseye that, right? Because if you say, I
Okay.
want women who are 68, right? You're going to get some that are 62. You're going to get some that are 74, but you be very specific. I want women who are 68. Then what's next, right? Well, they have to be interested in maintaining their own brain health or it doesn't make sense, right? Like
Mhm.
if you really want to talk about cognitive issues, cognitive decline, I probably want women who are 68 who have some level of experience or fear of Alzheimer's, right? Maybe they have family history of it. Maybe they were their mom's caregiver, right? You can start to really get specific because if I'm a healthy female 68-year-old, well, that's really nice, Joe, that you have a health coaching program for cognitive health. That might be great for some other person that needs that, right? And I miss it completely because it's not a fear of mine, it's not a concern. So you can get more targeted. What women age 68, this is their number one fear, right? Are
Mhm.
they gonna want to hear what you have to say? Probably, right? So you get
Yeah,
more
I looked at
specific.
some research that showed Alzheimer's is like way off the chart as one of the top fears.
Way off the chart, way off the chart for sure. Women this age, we can almost assume the average woman who's 68 knows someone who has experienced the ravages of Alzheimer's, right? Whether her
Right.
friend has had a
Yep.
spouse that dealt with it, or a friend whose mom died of it, or has had it in her own family, or her aunt, or so many people have had it that women at that age have had it touch their life in some way, right? I mean, I'm 49 and I have already had it ravage my life this week, right? My father-in-law has it, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
well, I appreciate that. So if you're 68, you probably know someone, whether it's immediately your family, you've had a friend whose life has been impacted by it.
Right.
But then you have to get to that next level, Joe. So don't assume, right? This is that if you build it, they will come. Don't assume that because you've created this great health coaching program for cognitive health, that just because you built it, people will come, right? That doesn't necessarily
Mhm.
work that way, even though a large percentage of women age 68 have the fear, they don't still know that they need to be doing something about it, right?
Mhm.
So I can be actively afraid that I'm going to get Alzheimer's, not aware of the fact that there are 10 things I could be doing this week to reduce my Alzheimer's risk substantially, right? And so
Right.
what I encourage you to do is, how do you begin to become the expert? And if you're doing this all virtually, then through your virtual community, whatever territory it is, how do you begin to position yourself as the expert on all of the things that I need to be doing, should be doing to maintain my cognitive health? And how do you start to tease out to someone, there are 3 things that I really need to help you with. So at some point, after, let's say, 5 or 6 Facebook posts from you, or a 10 email series, or a 5 blog post, or you probably should start doing video teaching. Do some video teaching from 10 to 15-minute segments. At some point I go, man, I've heard Joe talk about cognitive health 3 or 4 times. I think she's trying to tell me that I should be doing something about it, right? Like, it's actually preventable or reducible, my risk of Alzheimer's. I probably should contact her, right? And about the same time I have that thought, what do? You offer some sort of program, whether it's for $49 or $389 for me to sign up for, right? Because right now, just the fact that you offer this coaching, I don't know why I need it, right? So you have to educate your following, and this is where building a list, building a Facebook presence, building people that follow you is so important, because if you have 500 people on your email list that you can educate, and you can do things like this, right? You can run a live coffee and conversation on cognitive health, right? 5 tips for how to improve your cognitive health this week, this month. It's active aging week. Let's talk about emotional wellness and intellectual wellness, right? You might even talk about physical, right? We know that all forms of exercise help our brain, right?
It all relates. Yeah.
Now, I know people are leaving, no worries. Thanks for being here. Tiffany's got to run on Shul. That's great. So does that make sense, Joe? You have to start positioning yourself as the authority and the expert, start sharing great content pieces, and start making me realize, wait a minute, I think she's telling me, right? I mean, educate me as to how preventable Alzheimer's is, right? Educate me as to what are some of the things I need to be doing, right? Because some people think, oh, well, I eat pretty good and I exercise. Well, but what else could you be doing, right?
What else? Right.
So
and there's so much information lately about how all the lifestyle factors relate.
Yeah, so much information.
I love that you said, what did you say, 10 or 15-minute little
10 or
classes?
15
Because I
minute
was just
videos.
thinking of offering.
Yeah,
like
10 or
little-
15-minute
just little-
videos. If you want to target women, and 68 is a great age. The reason I asked you to be real specific, because now everything you create is for Susan, who's a 68-year-old woman who at 68, we can probably pretty well assume is retired. She's got to be a grandmother, right? She's probably got 4 or 5 grandkids. We can really start to think about who Susan is. Her husband of 30, 40 years is probably 72. She's probably starting to worry about his diet and health, and probably even getting concerned about his cognitive health, right? I mean, really define her. Where does she eat, live, work, and play, right? She shops at Talbot's. She shops at, right? She's got a small dog. I mean, you want to be so specific that you know her life, her pain points, and everything about them, right? And that's true for everyone listening on here, right? Like, if you're super specific, then when you send out an email blast or you create a 10-minute video, you're thinking about Susan, who's 68, right? You create that 10-minute video with her in mind. And I tell you what, women 68 are watching thousands of millions of hours on YouTube, right? They don't want to admit how much time they're on Facebook and YouTube watching videos, but they're there consuming it like crazy. So video is powerful, right? Because I get to know, like, and trust you, right? I mean, let's be honest. Do you guys feel like you know me better because I was on video via Zoom with you today, as opposed to if you hadn't seen me in my office, right? Video connects us a little bit more. People watch 5 videos with you, Joe, and I think 10 minutes is the sweet spot, because I'm not going to watch a 30-minute video in most cases. It's too long. Give me 10, 12 minutes on, 5 different topics that you think are critical for people to learn more. And at the end of every one of those videos, you can always close with, hey, and just so you know, I do, you know, what is it you do, right? I do coaching for cognitive health, for, you know, whatever it is your program is. So people are always at the end invited to work with you.
Can I
Do you-
just say something, Dan, to that effect? Joe, for what it's worth, I ended up doing a presentation on fitness for cognitive health for a adult daycare center in my area. And from that, I have now become a resource for them and have gotten a couple of clients from them. They're probably
Really?
not the primary focus of my practice for a couple of reasons, but that was a huge one for me. And I got that introduction from doing a health fair for a wealth management company.
Mm.
So that was a real good opportunity for me. Then recently I was at I went to there's a law firm local to me that focuses on estate planning, and every month they do sessions for the community. So the name of the law firm pulls them in, and then I went, and through that I met a bunch of people who work in either memory care, or they're folks that deal with people that have cognitive issues. So it's the providers that I connected in most with that then referred me. So I was kind of looking for those golden geese that would lead me to the end user, and they would do sort of a lot of the work for me by giving out my name. But I never thought an estate attorney would be like such a great like board for me to kind of spring from. But those were two places that I found that ended up being really great sources. And I met recently a lady that does something similar to what you're doing. Her background is in, it stemmed from her working with her own parents, that she got very involved in cognitive health, and now she does training at local senior communities for that. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that sort of
Yeah,
became a
that's
real springboard for me, because people that are searching it out, you know, they want a reliable, trustworthy source because there's so much information out there. If they have a personal
right.
connection to somebody that's going to be providing it, they, you know, they will grab you, and then they will share you with other people. And I would also tell you that for my folks with cognitive decline, it's their adult children, and not the actual person themselves or their spouse necessarily that is finding me for them.
Mhm.
So while you want women that are 68 to talk about cognitive health, it's probably their adult children that are hearing from them that they're concerned. And they're the ones that will also point you in the direction of the people that need it.
Joe, where are you located?
That's really good advice, Beth. I was actually thinking of estate attorneys, but I was thinking of contacting them directly, but going to their events.
Yeah.
That sounds
Yep.
like a brilliant activity. I'm in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina.
Really middle of
And
nowhere? Like small
I'm
town?
truly in the middle of nowhere.
How big's the town?
Oh my God, my closest town, which is 15 minutes away, is like 1,000 people, maybe.
Okay, so you are
I'm
you're even more remote than Janine in Canada. So
Yeah, I'm trying to move, but that's a whole
teasing you,
nother.
Janine. Yeah, I know you're in a
Well,
big town of 10,000.
I will say one other thing, because I just moved to like the southeastern Virginia. The sheriff's, I never knew this, but the sheriff's department down here in the Tidewater area, every sheriff's department does a big senior fest. So
Really?
there's literally like 5 senior fests going on that's gonna get me exposure to about 500 to 600 people per session, and the barrier to entry is like $100 versus like 1,200 at some
Uh,
of the big trade shows. So and I never knew this. So check with your local sheriff's
wow.
office on their website, and it may be worth a drive for you, because North
Hmm.
Carolina is like the place rated so highly for people retiring. Um,
Hmm.
all you read is that they're moving to North Carolina. So check that. I had no idea. And this is, I think, going to be a good opportunity for me to grow my list, which is small. It's not, I don't even think I have 300. So
This is weird because I was just thinking this week, I went to a couple of senior fairs and I got some great contacts, but I haven't followed up. But anyway, I was thinking, you know, almost all those senior fairs, it's just the big companies, right? Because they put it on in a big convention center, and you know, you have to be Anderson Windows
Yep.
or you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield to. But why shouldn't there be somebody running, you know, smaller scale senior events and making it so much more affordable for people that are in, you know, fitness or health coaching, or, you know, have any kind of product for seniors to be able to afford that? Because I think seniors would love to buy from, you know, from little companies and you know, people that have really specialty items, or
Yeah.
you know what
So,
I mean? Just not the big gigantic companies. It seems
yeah.
like that's
So if you're in a rural area, Joe, I'd encourage you to do sort of a multi-county look around you, right? I mean, I realize your business may be primarily virtual, but you can start on the ground with where you're at to start to build a network. And so I look for things, senior fairs. I mean, we did senior fairs for years, and in our county, the senior fair was like $100 to have a table at. It wasn't expensive.
what really?
Yeah.
Some of them are cheaper than you would expect, even though, yeah, there's Anderson Windows there and there's big companies and American Heart Association's there, but it's still
Yeah.
not expensive to have a table. The best event we ever
Huh.
did was the caregivers event, right? And I'm like, why am I showing up at a caregivers event? Not because I want to offer caregiving to anyone, because I want the people looking for caregiving because they're good prospects for me, right? So for us, great prospects were women 55 to 60 years old. Those are the people going to caregiving events looking for caregivers for their mom or dad. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want the caregiving, right? I'm not looking for the 88-year-old that needs in-home care. So you want to look for events. Caregiver events are great. Home care companies are probably a great connection for you, Joe, right? The adult daycare centers and the home care companies. If you become a resource, right, you go to the home care companies and, hey, which one of your clients are struggling with cognitive decline, cognitive impairment? I'm sure they have a lot, right? A big list.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I mean, one of the big primary reasons for caregivers are we have to drive people to doctor's appointments because they can't drive anymore because of cognitive decline or cognitive impairment, right?
Right.
They need someone to come help them at home because they're starting to struggle with certain things. So those companies are all synergistic to you, and you could probably start to build a list. I did hear you say though, Joe, so I have to come after you with it, right? You said you got some leads, you got some contacts, and you didn't follow up with any of them, right?
I
So I'm
did.
like, well, why
I
did you go
didn't.
there to
I
get
mean,
me?
I didn't.
You're not going to follow up with them. So, and
I
I'm
just didn't feel like I had my act together enough. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
okay. So that's imposter syndrome, right? You feel like, oh, I'm not quite ready,
Yeah.
or I don't know if I
Yeah.
can help them. Well, I tell you what, there's probably nobody else reaching out to help them. So, you can start with simple stuff, right? Like, let's say you go somewhere and you get 10 names, and you're like, I'm not really sure what to offer them. Email the 10 people and say, how might I be able to help you this week with your, fitness and health goals, right? And
Uh-huh.
see who responds. Hop on Zoom with them and start to learn how to become a better coach yourself, right? If you haven't coached a lot of people virtually, you got to start doing it. So take 3 or 4 of them and just make them your first clients, even if it's for free for a couple weeks. So you get
Mm.
better at it so that
Mm-hmm.
you stop ever saying, well, I didn't really know what to offer them, so I didn't reach out to them, right? Well, now you've crossed that bridge, you know what to offer them. You start to learn some of the things people struggle with. You start to learn, how do I do virtual health coaching with women that are 68 because there's technology issues, right? They can't figure out a Zoom link. They're like, oh, I thought we were doing the meeting at 2:30, not 2:45. There's all those
Mm-hmm.
things you have to learn. My wife has started doing business coaching, and she realized that she's like, there's a lot to this. I'm like, yeah, you got to get them the Zoom link a day ahead, and then an hour before. You got to let them know the time zone. She was coaching someone that fortunately was Indiana's crazy because we have 2 different time zones. Like 40 miles from here is a different time zone. So it's like,
Oh
what
yeah.
time is it where you are in Indiana? So she had to make sure she had that right. So there are a lot of other technical issues with coaching. Just start doing it. So follow up. Um, Follow up's a tricky word. I think of it as just start reaching out and asking people how you can help them. right?
Mhm.
You know, what are 2 ways I could help you with your fitness and health goals this week, right? And as people start to answer that, then you can figure out how to respond and how to help them, especially since you're new and starting out. You could even email, again, I don't know how many leads you got, but it doesn't really matter if it's 10 or 100. You could email them all and say, I'm going to create 2 videos for you next week. Here are the 5 topics I'm thinking about. Email me back and tell me which 2 are your favorite, right? And then you just create what they told you they want from you, right?
Oh, yeah, I love that.
I'm really big on creating for people what helps them, right? Sometimes people create the world's greatest program that nobody wants. And like,
Right.
you know, you have 10 people, let's say, how many leads and names did you get they haven't followed up with?
Oh, I'm embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed. Bye, Beth.
Um, you want a specific number?
Yeah, just give me the number.
Oh, gosh. Well, okay, so the higher number would be the email list that I have access to that I have sent like nothing.
Okay, how big is that
And
number?
people have said, so that's over several thousand, probably at least 3,000.
3,000.
And they've said, and the people have said, whatever you want me to send them, if you want to ask them, do it like a little survey. Because I said, what
Okay.
about a little survey where I can ask what
Well,
they're
what was the
interested?
specific? You were real specific. There was just a group of people that you need to follow up with. What was that number?
Oh, so from the senior fair,
Yeah.
it's probably like 10 or 15.
Okay, great. That's plenty. Joe, that's plenty to get started with. So if you reached out to all 15, if 7 of them responded back and say, I want to pay you $300 a month to do health coaching, you'd be off and rolling, right?
Yeah,
Now, that's probably unrealistic that you'll get 7, but
right.
this is the power of a list, right? Like I'm going to be honest, you probably, I mean, 15 clients paying you 500 a month is a $7,500 a month business. Is that a pretty good starting point for you?
That'd be a perfect starting point for me.
Okay, great. So you got to start with the 15 you have.
I'm gonna put that on my vision board today.
Yeah, great. Put that there. You got to start with the 15 you have that are literally sitting there, and for whatever reason, you don't have any interest in helping them. So let's get motivated about helping them. You can send them a simple email saying, email marketing is as much about just being real and authentic, and the word cool comes to mind, right? Just be yourself, right? Like, hey, it was super great to meet you at the senior fair. Wasn't that fun? One of the neatest things I learned was such and such, right? Like I had no idea that, it could be some random vendor that you saw. Oh, by the way, I'm now offering health coaching for cognitive health and wellness, well-being, mental health, however you want to introduce it. If you have any interest in that, please let me know, because I'm going to be taking on 3 clients for free in October. And if you think you might be interested in that, I've only got 3 spots. See what happens, right? If you get 6 people that respond, you might only take the first 3 for free, and then everybody else has to pay $99 or something, and you're off and rolling.
Something
Because
small.
in my mind, you need 5 social proof client testimonials, right? I come to your webpage to do health coaching with you for cognitive health, and nobody's ever worked with you, and I'm like, wait, am I
doesn't
going to
look
be your
good.
first ever client, Joe?
Yeah,
So
nobody wants to be the first.
yeah, nobody wants to be the first, right? So, offer it for free for a couple of weeks with 3 people. One, you get to get better at it and build your confidence. Man, I can do this. I'm really helping people. You also start to realize, like, oh my gosh, if people just listen to me on like 3 basic things, their quality of life changes. Like maybe drink a glass of water when you first get up in the morning, maybe have breakfast with protein in it. I mean, there's so many basic cognitive health tips. Maybe take a walk
Simple
every
thing.
day. People just start doing, the 5 basic tips for brain health. They'll get so much better.
I know I have so many people that say, "Oh, you'd be really proud of me because I do a crossword puzzle every day."
Oh God.
And they're
No, I
thinking
wouldn't be
that's
proud of
all
you
they
at all
need
for
to
that.
do.
Oh, hilarious.
Thank you so much. This is and Beth, where'd she go?
Beth left. She said
Oh,
she
she
just
left.
off, so.
This has been so very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for being on live, for sharing, asking questions. This was a lot of fun. If you have more questions or you want ongoing coaching from me, I will send a follow-up email. Gosh, we had probably another 20 people register that didn't make it. So if you're on the recording and you're like, oh, I didn't get to ask my question and nobody asked it, I'll send you a follow-up. It's $2.99 a month to coach with me. I can definitely help grow your business. Like Joe, I mean, I would quickly just say for you, I would say, hey, let's get you to 15 clients paying 500 a month, and then probably have another 15 to 30 clients paying 100 a month that get way less from you, that we're trying to get them to ascend to the $500 a month program, and you'd be off and rolling, right? And 15 people is not that many. It's really not. When you start doing even just probably a 5, 6 county-wide search, the number of people that need your help, there's plenty. So thanks everyone for being on live. I hope this is worth your time. For those of you on the recording, this is a good hour and a half worth of material for you. So hope you enjoyed it. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks a million.
Yep, you're welcome.